Thank you, Raymond. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I want to thank Revolution Books. If you don't know this bookstore, this is the place to be tonight and going forward into the future. This is a very important space. You'll hear more about it. But I'm very happy to be here, and I'm happy to be on the new stage. And I want to thank everybody who's donated to Revolution Books and to the stage and to stocking the shelves and all of this. This place is all the more important right now. So I want to talk about tonight, as Raymond said, what the Trump-Pence victory means for women. These are very dangerous times. He was speaking about this is a fascist president-elect, this is a fascist program. I'm going to focus on what this means for women, but this is one piece, it's a very critical piece of the whole program that we are now being confronted with. I would say straight up, it is impossible to overestimate the danger of the Trump-Pence victory to women. I'm not talking about an undesirable, but more or less incremental rollback of women's rights. I am talking about a brutal beatdown, an assault on women, intended to leave women bloodied and bruised, nursing their wounds in humiliated silence as they cradled the rape babies they've been forced to bear. No, I am not exaggerating. Much of what I'm saying tonight is drawn from an article that I did for revcom.us, and I'll talk more about this as I go. And I want to lay this out, and I want to get into this, and then I'm really looking forward to the discussion with all of you, because we have a lot of work to do to understand this and confront this. But let me walk through why I'm saying this. Donald Trump is a walking, talking embodiment of rape culture. He's an embodiment of vindictive revenge against women, of cruel degradation and violence against women. We all heard those tapes only a few weeks ago, the Access Hollywood tapes, right? Where Donald Trump was caught and outed for bragging about sexually assaulting women. I walk up to them, I grab them by their genitals, I don't ask. Ha, 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 ha. This is a man boasting to other powerful men about degrading and demeaning women. And it's not just an empty boast. It's not just a joke. It's not just locker room talk, even though this does go on in all too many locker rooms. This is real women. 1 in 3 women on this planet will be raped or beaten or sexually assaulted. This is mocking that pain. This is whipping up and relying on that sense of male entitlement that men have been socialized to have over women's bodies for thousands of years. Whipping it up, relying on it, laughing about it, and modeling it for the world. And it's a big joke to him. And the women who speak out about it, what is his answer? He insults their looks. He says, oh, you wouldn't be my first choice to assault or degrade. As if that's some kind of a compliment. To be somebody who this man wants to degrade, wants to treat as a piece of object or meat, as if women's value, as if women's worth in this world is actually to be some kind of sexual commodity and object for men. That's not a compliment. It's cruel degradation. It's an insult. It's trauma that millions of women carry. It's not a joke, and it's real. Donald Trump thinks it's up to him whether women smile, how they walk, whether they eat, when they speak. He bragged about walking into the dressing rooms of teenage girls who are in a beauty pageant. Think what this means. What is a beauty pageant, first of all? It's a concentration of a whole culture that treats women like sex objects. I'm not insulting the women and girls who get caught up in it. I'm critiquing the culture. That women are paraded out like pieces of meat, like objects, put in the bikini, put in this, put in that, and put on display, and then judged. So you have this demonstration, this institution, this concentration of a whole culture that treats women as sex objects, as physical things to be used for the sexual pleasure of men. And then you have this man who is bragging about, on Howard Stern, another concentration of rape culture, bragging about how he would walk in, because he's the owner, he's powerful, he's got money, he'd walk in unannounced to see these teenage young women undressed, and they couldn't do anything about it, and he's the owner, and they can't insult him. He is unapologetically modeling this behavior and fighting for men everywhere to forcefully reclaim their brutal domination. He's soon going to wield the most powerful instruments of the most powerful state in human history. He was endorsed, not in spite of this, but largely because of this. He really relied on the sense of frustrated entitlement of millions and millions of men who've become angry that women have broken out of their traditional roles of enslavement. Women have entered the workforce in huge numbers. Women are making their own decisions about their sexual lives, who they will and will not sleep with, on what terms. The use of birth control and abortion has radically transformed women's role in society in the last few decades. There's other changes that have gone on. A lot of men have had their minds open to this and have embraced this. A lot of men respect this. But there are huge sections of men in this country, and fundamentally the system that we live under, that could not embrace this and is furious that these traditional forms of patriarchy and the enslavement of women have been broken down. And there's a real sense of anger among men, of frustrated entitlement. And this has led to a whole culture of revenge. You see it in the revenge porn. You see it in the violence that's unleashed against women on social media. You see it in the stalking. You see it in the content of pornography, the violence, the degradation, the cruelty. You see all of this, and this is what Trump championed. He said, I'm going to bring this out. And that's what got the endorsement. And he is getting ready to be head of state of the American empire. Already, in just the days after he won the election, there were reports coming out across the country as part of the upsurge in hate crimes against Muslims, hate crimes and racist outbreaks against black people and Latino people and immigrants. There were reports across this country of women, including girls, elementary school girls, who had men, strangers on the street, or classmates walk up to them and grab them by the genitals and cite Donald Trump. I read about a 10-year-old girl, or I heard it on the radio, who had a classmate come up and grab her by the crotch and say, this is a message from the president. If he can do it, I can do it. Just let that sink in. This is already a culture that is woven and saturated with the hatred of women. But this is not all. This is only half of it. Trump, a lot of times people are, oh, I've noticed this. Some people, Donald Trump really scares me, but, you know, Mike Pence, he seems more reasonable. Okay, Trump has married this program of cruel degradation, of rape culture, of objectification and sexual degradation of women to the Mike Pence program. Okay, Mike Pence, people should know, yes, he is a Christian fascist. He hails from the most extreme wing of what could accurately be described as the American Taliban. And I don't say that facetiously. I don't say that with any sense of hyperbole. This is a man who believes the Bible should be interpreted literally, every bit as fundamentalist and theocratic as the Taliban, only he references the Christian Bible. He wants a world where no birth control, no sex ed, no abortion, under any circumstances, even if a woman, her life is at risk, even if she's been raped. He's somebody who fought, not just passed the laws, but fought to protect the right of major businesses and minor businesses, of businesses and individuals to discriminate against LGBT people, to refuse them service. He said that this was the right of their religious liberties. He fought for this. He wants them to have the right to not serve or to kick out people who are gay or lesbian who are getting married, or trans people. He fought against the right of trans people to use the bathrooms that correspond to their gender identity. He's a man who said that he would support funding for HIV as long as it didn't give any state funds to groups that condone or accept lesbian and gay lifestyles. And he actually said the money should be funded instead into the programs that torture and attempt to brainwash gay kids and other lesbian and gay people into being straight. He actually said this should be funded by the government. So this is a man who really, really concentrates old school, Old Testament enslavement of women. And we should be clear, when you make abortion unavailable, when you make birth control unavailable, what you are saying is women are not full human beings. Women, it shouldn't be up to them when and whether they have a child. It shouldn't be up to them what they do with their lives. Their fundamental role is to be breeders of children. They're breeders. They're a uterus. They're an incubator. And they should be controlled by the men who own them or the state above them. And in his case, he wants it to be a biblically enforced state. This is a form of enslavement. Now look, if you want to have a child, that can be a beautiful thing. If you want to have a child, if you're ready to have a child, if you can do it on terms that are conducive to who you are and what you want to do with your life, that's one of the most beautiful things you can do. The same thing with sex, by the way. If you want to have sex, and it's on terms of mutual respect, and it's voluntary, that can be one of the most beautiful things that humans can experience with somebody else. But if either of these things are forced on you, if you're stripped of the rest of your humanity and you're reduced to a sex object or reduced to a breeder, and forced to do either, forced to have a child or to have sex against your will, those are forms of enslavement. There's nothing fundamentally different between forced motherhood and rape. They're both forms of female enslavement. And this is where the Trump-Pence program comes together. Trump is a crude, womanizing, Howard Stern, bragging, rape culture, degradation, embodiment. And Trump is the moral rectitude of religious fundamentalism and theocratic enforcement. I mean, Pence, thank you. Pence is that. He's the theocrat. But they come together because both reduce women to objects. They're mirror opposites. Both deny women their full humanity. Women are not breeders. Women are not bitches. Women are not hoes. Women are not punching bags. Women are not sex objects. Women are not incubators. Women are full human beings. But the denial of that is what both of these people have in common, and it's what their whole program represents and concentrates when it comes to women. And I want to say, as outrageous as all of this is, including the Pence part of it, it's not even a little bit far-fetched that this could soon become the law of the land. People know there's a Supreme Court bench that's empty. And Trump has promised that he will fill this with somebody who opposes abortion, who's in the school of Alito. Now, if they overrule Roe v. Wade, overnight, there are 19 states in this country that already have anti-abortion laws on the books that would make abortion essentially non-existent. Trump, I get them mixed up. I'm going to do that all night. I'm going to get them, I'll say, Trents. Trump has said he wants to punish women who get abortions. Not just take away the right, but criminalize it. Look, thousands and thousands of women died in the back alleys. Thousands and thousands of women died every year in the back alleys when abortion was illegal. Women risk their lives because it is. If you don't want to have a child, your whole life gets subsumed. You get trapped in abusive relationships. You get trapped in conditions of impoverishment. You get trapped, you have to drop out of school, you have to foreclose your dreams. If you are forced to have a child you're not ready to have. So women took desperate measures to terminate unwanted pregnancies. They risked their lives and many lost their lives. Many, many, many more people than anybody likes to talk about. I guarantee you everybody in this, I can't guarantee you, I bet you everybody in this room has family members who have had illegal abortions. Whether in this country or in some other part of the world. It may never have been spoken about because there's so much shame that surrounds it and criminalization that surrounds it, but it was very widespread. Trump wants to take this away again. And it's not only affects those women who need an abortion and whose lives are foreclosed for lack of abortion, it is a weight and a threat that hangs over every woman. Every woman, every month, every time she is late a day, she's in terror. This is what it was like when abortion was illegal. You know, falling in love. I interviewed Marge Piercy one time, the poet and author. We have her books here. And she had an illegal abortion. She was part of facilitating other women getting illegal abortions back before Roe v. Wade. She said it was a time when falling in love could kill you. It's very heavy. It's very real. And that's something, it's a threat that hangs over every woman. And then it affects many very directly. This is what he's threatening to bring back. And there are Like I said, 19 states that would automatically revoke this right if Roe v. Wade were overturned. And this is coming on top of the fact that there have been hundreds of clinic bombings of doctors and clinic staff that have been assassinated by Christian fascists and Christian fundamentalists. This comes on top of the fact that doctors and staff are stalked, are terrorized already, right now at record levels. This comes on top of the shooting that happened at Planned Parenthood. This comes on top of the national government, the federal government, threatening to shut down the whole government over defunding Planned Parenthood. That was under Obama. Okay, the so-called pro-choice president. This will all go to much higher levels, and it's going to happen very quickly, and it has to be fought. There was something else I was going to say about this abortion. Oh, it's on top of, I was going to say it's on top of the fact that women everywhere, when they go into the clinics already, everywhere in all 50 states, including here in New York City, and I see Mary Lou in the back nodding because she works out at Choices in Queens. Every weekend, there are Christian fanatics out there harassing women on their way into the clinics, calling them murderers, telling them that they should, that they're going to hell, shaming them, whipping up a lot of hatred, and a lot of women feel horrible about a decision that is perfectly moral and they should feel no shame at all for. Fetuses are not babies. Abortion is not murder, and women are not incubators. But this has the weight of thousands of years of tradition and religious scripture and patriarchal thinking behind it. And so when you get screamed at and threatened on the way into the clinic, it really does. It embeds itself in women's minds. It's a form of terror and it's a form of harassment. And that already happens all across this country. So in about 60 days or so, Trump is going to be inaugurated. Or that's the plan, okay? That's what they want to do. I want to say this, I started by saying this is not an incremental rollback. This is a very dangerous situation. I think about after the Iranian Revolution in 1979, when people rose up there, and unfortunately, the theocrats got initiative and consolidated the Islamic Republic of Iran. And it was a pretty secular society. Women went into the streets. They saw this theocrat come to power. There was protests of tens of thousands of women in the streets. And most people did not believe that they would consolidate and really do what they were claiming. There is a lot of disbelief in this country, too. People think, oh, we've come so far. Oh, you could never get away with what they're claiming. Oh, no one would put up with it. Oh, it's in the Constitution. Okay, one of the things about fascism is you actually do not regard and respect the rule of law in the Constitution. It's not going to stop them. These are theocrats and these are fascists. And they're very, very serious about implementing this. This has to be fought. This has to be resisted. This cannot be allowed to consolidate. We cannot allow a situation where these rights are stripped away from women and sexual predation and rape are glorified. And women who speak up are shamed, even more than today, okay? And this is just part of his program, as I said. I'm not going to speak as much about the rest of it, but I don't think it's right to talk about Trump and not speak about the totality of it. He appointed this woman, Betsy DeVos, to be the head of the Department of Education. This is another one of those. This is somebody who is an evolution denier, a climate change denier. She's somebody who literally wants to turn American schools into the equivalent of madrasas, where you take out the funding from the public schools and you funnel it into voucher programs, which are essentially enable people to put their children in Christian fundamentalist schools, white-only schools. It's got a whole program of white supremacy embedded in it, a whole program against secular education embedded in it, and you starve out the public schools. They literally want to get rid of all public education and have only private and Christian schools. And she's being promoted. This is a very, very dangerous thing for the climate, for science, for people's ability to understand the world, and for women. And yes, for people of color, black people, immigrants, and Muslims, people of other faiths, atheists. It's very dangerous. We're also dealing with a situation. I've been in Chicago on this tour where we're organizing people into the revolution. Chicago is a place where it's just one microcosm of what the Trump administration means. There was a funeral of a young man, and of a black young man, and his family was there, and they were driving through a white neighborhood, mainly police area. A lot of police live there in Mount Greenwood, Chicago. And they were driven off the road. Somebody got into it with them. An off-duty police officer harassed this family, pulled a gun on them, and then as this was going on, another off-duty police officer came over and shot a young man, Joshua Beal, 13 times, killed him at his cousin's funeral. This is unfortunately very common in this country, police murdering people. Today, Keith Lamont Scott, the police officer who killed Keith Lamont Scott, just said he won't be charged. But in Mount Greenwood, not only was this man killed, within hours, people in the neighborhood, which was largely police officers and firemen, almost entirely white neighborhood, came out and started harassing the family. They came out with American flags. They came out and they cheered when they got to the spot where Joshua Beal was killed. And over the next several days, they came out again and again. And we were part of protests that went and confronted and marched in Mount Greenwood there. These people came out, hundreds of them, and they had the American flag and they were chanting, "Trump, Trump, Trump." Okay, this was celebrating. This was a modern-day lynch mob celebrating murder by police. Not just sitting aside, which is bad enough, sitting aside when it goes on, but coming out and celebrating it. And threatening the family and threatening the protesters, threatening to break the bones of a priest who came out to protest it. This is Trump America, okay? It's white supremacy, it's patriarchy, it's the whole program. I want to mention North Dakota, where people are courageously camped out. Native peoples of many, many different tribes, including the Standing Rock, protecting the water and standing up against the pipeline, protecting sacred lands, and many other people who are standing with them, where the federal government and the state of North Dakota have threatened to demolish their camp, and they're building this pipeline that's destroying the planet, poisoning the water. It's part of the whole destruction of this country, and not this country, of the planet, and the continuation of the genocide against Native peoples, and it's escalating right now. This is part of the Obama administration, but it's going to go to new levels under Trump. This is a big threat. This is part of what is going to be the new normal, and it cannot be allowed. You have Flynn, General Flynn, who's being promoted, who says that all Muslims everywhere, the war should be on Muslims. This is part of the Trump program. It's a whole genocidal international program. And then there is the flag burning, and I'm not going to go on about this a lot, but yesterday when Trump said that he wanted to imprison people who burn flags, and he wants to strip them of their citizenship, this is a threat not only against people who burn flags, but this is an escalation against any dissent, any protest, any opposition. This is why it's so dangerous. This is one of the things about fascism. It has a program for women. It has a program of mass deportations for immigrants. It has a program of taking what has been a slow genocide of police murder and mass incarceration against black people and speeding it up into a fast genocide with very monstrous implications for humanity. And it has a program for women, for enslavement, for shaming, for legally putting the state behind that and unleashing a whole culture and violence against women in the everyday life of men against women on the street and in the homes. And then fascism has a program of crushing dissent, of criminalizing opposition, of imprisoning people, of stripping them of their citizenship, stripping them of their rights and their ability to protest. This has got to be stopped. This entire program has to be stopped. And the fight to stop what's being done to women and the fight to unleash the fury of women against this, and to not normalize this, to not tone it down and say there are some problems, but you know, well, we could live with this, we could live with that, oh, we'll protest this, but you're working within the confines of what's being set. We cannot normalize this. This has to be stopped. And the fury of women being unleashed against this is a key and very dynamic factor in breaking this whole fascist program apart. It's not the only one, but it's a critical one. And it's critical for women, and it's critical for everybody. It's critical that this be connected to and central to the whole fight. For everybody, I want to mention a few things. This is a really good tool. This is Revolution newspaper. And it says on the front, "In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America." This is a newspaper. It has the article that I'm largely drawing from in this talk. It also has other things. It has the timeline for the rise of the Nazis in Germany, how things went. They didn't start out with the final solution, but how people got acclimated step by step and how that crime happened. But how you could see in advance where it was going. and why you had to stand up and fight it in the very beginning ferociously. It has a statement in this piece, in this newspaper, that is, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. We also have it printed separately. And this actually breaks down. It doesn't water down, it doesn't tone down what Trump actually has said and what he actually has promised to do and the danger this represents. It doesn't tone down that this is fascism. And it does some work for people because a lot of people don't know what fascism really is. And it breaks that down. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of copies of this need to get out across this country. One of the most important things we need to do right now, one of the most important things that everybody needs to do to stop this program is to spread this statement. Spread it in your school, spread it in your laundromat, put it out on social media, share it with your family, read it, discuss it, take it to your congregation, leave it on the train, spread it in your apartment buildings, literally canvass with it, put it on people's windshields in the cars that are parked in your neighborhood. Spread this everywhere. People need to give voice to, they need to confront, not water down what this program means, and they need to see that there's a force and a voice that validates their deepest fears and helps them understand it and gives them some direction. And this statement, after the title, it says, "Rise up, get into the streets. Unite with people everywhere to build up resistance in every way you can. Don't stop, don't conciliate, don't accommodate, don't collaborate." And then it breaks down what that means. And if you go to the website, revcom.us, we get into what all of that means. And every day and every week we're updating this. We're doing exposure on every one of the people Trump is appointing, who they are, what's dangerous about them, what is going on in the resistance, what lessons need to be popularized, where are the courageous resistors who we need to have their backs, what is the standard that needs to be set. This newspaper, this physical copy needs to get everywhere, the statement needs to get everywhere, and this website is an invaluable resource. If you want to stop fascism, you have to understand it and you have to lead others to understand it. We have to fight, we have to resist, and I'll get to that. But I just want to say there's no single more important resource that people could get their hands on right now than these tools and this website. Now, for my own part and here at Revolution Books, and for those of us who are supporters of, members of, friends of the Revolutionary Communist Party, for the Revolution Clubs, for the RevComs, we come at this, and we are struggling with and urging you to come at this, not just from a standpoint of stopping fascist America, although we must, and we will unite with everybody who's fighting to do that. But we don't want to preserve the way things have been. We don't want to fight just to keep things from going to fascism and maintain the status quo. The status quo has been a nightmare for humanity. The status quo, when you talk about women, the status quo is rapists already getting away with a slap on the wrist. The status quo is, people like to say Donald Trump was not right. Locker room culture is not what he claimed. Locker room culture is what he claimed. Look what happened just a couple weeks ago up at Harvard. They had to suspend the soccer team. Why? Because it had created a database, and every year they updated it, itemizing and objectifying and grading the physical, sexual attributes of the female soccer players. It was an institution of the soccer team, the male soccer team. They assigned every single female athlete a sexual position. This was locker room culture. This is male-dominated culture. And it's not just in the locker rooms. It's in the media. It's in the music. It's on the street. It's the harassment. It's in the bedroom. It's in people's lives all over the place. It happened to speak of locker rooms, it happened at Columbia University. These are elite institutions. These are the future rulers of the empire. These are the people being trained to run and administer government, major corporations, all of this. Their wrestling team had to get suspended. Why? Because it came out that they were sending group texts for years speaking about women in similar sexual degraded terms and using the N-word to refer to black people, mocking the struggle of people in Ferguson, mocking the murder of Michael Brown. This was the culture in the locker room, okay? This is the status quo. We're not fighting to preserve this. The status quo is a system of degradation and exploitation and oppression. It affects women doubly hard. It ropes around the world, okay? It's women in the sweatshops of China and Bangladesh, slaving away to make our cheap consumer goods and keep the U.S. economy going. The status quo is mass rape in Congo. where civil wars have been unleashed because of the imperialist fight over coltan that makes our cell phones work. And the status quo is women kidnapped and beaten and raped and drugged and sold into sexual slavery all over the world by the millions and millions, but especially surrounding every single U.S. military base. Because rape culture is concentrated, and the predation of women has always been bound up with the reactionary armies, the armies of conquest and plunder and dehumanization. The dehumanization of women has always been a cornerstone in that, and that's why you see higher rates of sexual assault in the military and in the police than you do even in the broader society. It's concentrated in the state. Why? Because the state enforces a system that has patriarchy woven into its foundations. It concentrates a system that has white supremacy woven into its foundation, American imperialism and chauvinism woven into its foundation. So for our part, we are not fighting to go back to the way things have been or to preserve the way things are. We are fighting to dislodge and prevent the consolidation of fascism, but in the course of it, while uniting with anybody coming from any perspective who wants to stand up against that, we will be fighting to make an actual revolution, to overthrow this system, to get rid of American imperialism and capitalism altogether, to make a communist revolution. We're followers of Bob Avakian, who has developed a new communism. If you don't know about it, you should learn about it. He is somebody who's re-envisioned revolution and communism, learning from the revolutions of in Soviet Union and China, learning from their advances, including their great advances in liberating women, as well as their shortcomings and their errors, and learning from broader human experience. He's developed a new communism. It's here in this book, The New Communism. He's written the Constitution for the new Socialist Republic, what we would implement day one after a revolution here. And here I just want to read one quote from him because it gets at something very important about this revolution he's envisioning and how it relates to the liberation of women. He has said, "You cannot break all the chains except one. You cannot say you want to be free of exploitation and oppression, except you want to keep the oppression of women by men. You can't say you want to liberate humanity, yet keep one half the people enslaved to the other half. The oppression of women is completely bound up with the division of society into masters and slaves, exploiters and exploited, and the ending of all such conditions is impossible without the complete liberation of women. All this is why women have a tremendous role to play, not only in making revolution, but in making sure there is all the way revolution. The fury of women can and must be fully unleashed as a mighty force for proletarian revolution." And one of the hallmarks of Bob Avakian's work, in doing the work over decades to really study this system, its dynamics, why it can't be reformed, why you need a revolution, and why you need to take a thoroughly scientific approach to making a revolution, has been really situating the liberation of women as a driving force in this. He's made the point, you cannot liberate women as long as this system is intact and enforcing its way of life on people, the economic production mode of capitalism and everything that results in. But you also cannot break all the chains without fighting for the liberation of women, without fighting to uproot one of the deepest, most early, one of the most embedded, one of the first divisions into oppressor and oppressed that humanity has ever seen, and that has been with us through all different forms of class divisions, including the one we live under today. Why the complete liberation of women is got to be a big driving force in the fight to break all the chains. And why women rising up and men rising up with them against this is a critical part of making the revolution we need. A lot of this is gone into more deeply in this piece, which I really want to promote. There's a lot of things to read, but there's a lot of work we have to do, so I'm only going to talk another couple minutes. But this is very important. It's called Break All the Chains. Bob Avakian on the emancipation of women and the communist revolution. And this gets into his new thinking, building on the previous revolutions, but it's taking it further, and it's very important. And no one has done anything as thorough and path-breaking and liberating as this when it comes to breaking all the chains. So I really want to commend this to people. So, finally, let me see where I'm at, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. I want to say we are definitely I think there's no way, I started with this, there's no way to underestimate, or there's no way to overestimate the danger facing women. These are very, very dangerous times, and it's going to require a lot of us. I think it's very important that people have been in the streets starting the night of the election and the days since. It's very important that that happens. It's important that the students are walking out. It's important that campuses are declaring themselves sanctuary campuses for the immigrants. It's very important that people are rising up and raising their voices. It's very important that there's momentum towards a major march for women the day after the inauguration. This should be very powerful. People need to be there, thousands, tens of thousands, millions. We should have a Tahrir Square in this country. Not let this man be inaugurated, not let him have a shred of legitimacy, not let him be normalized. This has to be massive. It's very important this has begun, but it's got to go to a whole new level. It's got to become much more broad, much more diverse, much more determined, and there needs to be a lot more of people breaking the rules. I will tell you this. Many people have heard, not enough people, but people have heard the quote from Pastor Martin Niemöller, who survived Nazi Germany. And he made the very important statement after he went through the death camps. He said, first they came for the communists, but I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the Catholics. I didn't speak up because I was Protestant. And then they came for me and there was no one left to speak up. Now we cannot let that happen. But I also want to bring up another quote from him, which we have on revcom.us and we've been writing about. He said, because after he survived this, he traveled the world and he spoke about what he lived through. He said, look, if we had risen up in the early days of Hitler, he said, to be honest, 30 or 40,000 of us might have lost our heads, probably would have been killed. He said, but think of what we would have prevented. And here I want to say, you cannot let fascism be consolidated. It cannot be allowed. And people are going to have to pour into the streets, but people are going to have to take risks. People are going to have to get out of the bounds of acceptable, normal protest. I think for inspiration of things like the Underground Railroad. I think about people like Carl Dix and the Fort Lewis Six, people who refused to fight in Vietnam even though they knew they'd go to prison. And Carl Dix, who's a founding member of our party, the Revolutionary Communist Party, spent 2 years in prison for that. He refused to fight in Vietnam. He spent a year in solitary, but he did not lose his humanity, and he contributed to stopping a genocidal war. We need people who are going to take risks, who are going to defy unjust, illegitimate, and illegal acts from this government, from this state, from this fascist regime, and it cannot be consolidated. And the reason I think of that quote from Pastor Martin Niemöller is that fascism is very dangerous and the power of this state is very dangerous. And when they revoke, it's horrible already if you go to Mississippi. I've spent time in Mississippi. I've spent time in Texas. It's horrible for women there who need abortions. It is like Roe v. Wade doesn't exist. But you take it away and you back that up with the state, it's a whole different animal. It's much harder to turn that around. And you go on any of these fronts, when 3 million immigrants have been torn from their families, it's impossible to undo that, okay? You can't let that be consolidated. But I want to say it's very dangerous, but there's also vulnerability. It has not been consolidated yet. And that's why this point from Niemöller about people standing up in the early days and saying, no, you're going to have to come through us. We're not going to let this happen. This is extremely important. So I think we should brainstorm in the discussion about what that looks like. I think we should talk about, is this true? What is the danger? How great is it? Am I exaggerating? Am I missing dimensions? I probably am missing dimensions. We should deepen it. We should talk about what we're really confronting. That's one thing I'd like to get into. We should talk about, where is this coming from? And is it enough to fight to stop the fascism? Or do we need to get rid of a system? Is it actually deeper? What's given rise to Trump? And what does that have to do with the system of American imperialism and capitalism here? And what's the alternative? And I'd like us also to talk about what kind of resistance is required of us right now. And what is it going to take to go out and move millions of people to defy this regime to refuse to allow it to be consolidated, and to build up the strength in the organization to bring about a world that's actually fit for human beings. So these are things I'd like us to talk about. I want to thank you guys for coming out, and we'll get into it.